Hey, how's everybody doing? Today, my square is so cheeky. That's not right. My chair is so squeaky. My queer is so chasiki. Man, look at my face. Am I just really high? Am I dehydrated? I mean, it's all the same lights that are always on. I don't know. I moved my lamp a little closer. Doesn't seem to have helped. Hmm. Might move that around again. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to the writing process. I'm Jeff, El Jefe Tacoma. Please go listen to my shows. Everything is awesome. Shattered Worlds RPG, good idea. Something wonderful right away. The War for the Tower. Yes, I'm on 5 podcasts. It's great. Um, yeah. Check out Sinister Parent Company. That's the network I'm in. On Twitter at Sin Parent Co. All right. Are you guys ready for this shit? Episode 15. Wait, that's not right. Book 4, Chapter 15. June! Ayana was walking through the vast hall of the temple when she saw her. June Zakarian, her brilliant red hair laying soft upon her long and elegant back. June turned, her expression converting from one of worried frustration to one of supreme joy. She threw her bag at her assistant and ran in Ayana's direction. One of the temple guards rushed to block her. Ayana waved him off, and the two young women embraced for what seemed like decades. Ayana told June and her assistant to follow her to an entertaining area near the base of the lofty stairs. That sentence was hard to read. Let me try it again. Ayana told June and her assistant to follow her to mm, to follow her to an entertaining area near the base of the lofty stairs. Yeah, it's a real mouth mover. She swept a curtain aside, and the three of them took seats upon two velvety cushioned sofas, gauzy orange sunlight filtering in from the curtained windows. I've been asking after you for days, Ayana. You've been ignoring me. She adopted a coquettish, mockly put out expression. Ayana smiled and tapped June on her exposed knee. June, I've been so busy. They gave me an office in the city. I've barely been here at all. June looked in, or June leaned in, a look of intense fascination on her face. I can't believe it. Tell me everything. So she did. They talked for hours, drinking coffee, tea, eating biscuits and salad and more biscuits, as well as half a braised salmon, taking nearly the entire day to get caught up. June told her everything: her education, her dating life, her parents' obsession with finding her a husband. And Ayana told June everything about the priesthood, her time on Antares One, her awkward attraction to the captain and Joran Barlow, and her sudden rise in station. Weirdly, June mostly wanted to hear about Grundle. She'd seen all the videos of him, read all the stories. She'd even clipped out the pictures of he and Ayana. Ayana was wistful as she described her time with the gentle giant. Talking about him somehow made things better. He was truly a remarkable man. June leaned in close and whispered, Is it true what they say? That he loves you? Ayana blushed. Are they really saying that? She patted June's hand. June, he is a servant of the goddess. His heroism knows no bounds. He serves without thinking of what it might profit him. He is indeed an honorable figure. June was incredulous. She smacked Aeonna's hand. You have feelings for him. June, I don't believe you. A knock came against the side of the entryway. Aeonna straightened herself. June's assistant moved to get up. Aeonna waved for her to remain. Enter. An acolyte entered, bowing low. Aeonna waved her hand. What is it? The acolyte continued to bow. Aeonna didn't have the energy to put the woman at ease. Sister, the matron supreme Barillon desires an audience. Aeonna instantly went dark. Barillon, goddess have mercy. Tell her I'll see her upstairs. I'll come up after I've said goodbye to Lady Zakarian. The acolyte receded through the curtain. Aeonna looked at once frazzled and angry. She reached out to June. June, I wish we could spend more time together. June smiled and laughed. You can. We're having a function tomorrow night. You should come. Bring a date. She winked and left the chamber, giggling as she passed. Her assistant picked up her bags and followed suit. Aeonna couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry. She prayed briefly, then left to meet her old nemesis. Barillon, what are you up to now? Chapter 16. Grundle. Grundle had moved heaven and earth to prepare Phalene's rescue. He'd spent nearly every connel he had left, holding some in reserve to pay the agent upon her safe release. He wouldn't know the name of the ship or anyone associated with it, but he'd receive a coded message that included a phrase settled on between he and Phalene. They'd chosen until the spring thaws on Hazakar. He told her all about the springtime blossoms of his homeworld, the way the lupins would erupt upon the mountainsides in all colors of the rainbow. He told her how the streams would run ice cold and the salmon would fill the water from bank to bank. He told her how the sparrows would coat the roofs of barns and sheds across the foothills, their mad songs filling his ears with strange music. He spoke of calves being birthed and timid raccoon babies skulking through the underbrush. For a girl who'd grown up in the slums of Calustria, and here again I change perspective. I guess sometimes that's okay. I don't know. For a girl who'd grown up in the slums of Calustria, it was like hearing about a life she'd never even known existed. It was like hearing about a life she never even knew existed. It was like hearing about a life she'd never even knew existed. There was something so beautiful about his face while he shared his old stories. He was a truly remarkable man, this Vercalet. She prayed that she might see him again. Then she lamented, knowing the snakes would surely murder her and her precious Becca, no matter what she did. The operation was simple. She filmed her last video diary, got into the spacesuit, stepped into the escape hatch, and jettisoned into the void. As the hatch slowly closed behind, they looked into each other's eyes, their thoughts focused and resigned to fate. Once she was out of tractor beam range, he hit the alarm button. He took a seat on a nearby crate and tried not to cry. Poor Grundle. Chapter 17. Sophris, Sophris patted Grundle on the back. Do not punish yourself, Grundle. She was resolved. There was nothing you could have done. Grundle glowered. He filled his head with angry, self-defeating language, but he knew Sophris would learn the truth if he went looking for it. He kept telling himself it was his fault. He kept telling himself it was his fault, that he could have saved her life, that he should have stood up to them. Sophris, for his part, was unconcerned. She was someone else's problem now. Alive or dead, she would not be hurting Portillion. Sophris, you think it's safe to let him out? Captain Sparkles seems pretty harmless. Sophris chuckled. Joran had a gift for nicknames. He was actually surprised the man didn't have one for him. Grundle marched over to Portillion's container and started gathering up his things. It shouldn't be a problem. We're relatively free from Lady Marshall's machinations at this point. And we're nearly to Calustria. Grundle, what say you? Grundle, what say you? What say you? What say you? Grundle looked down at his feet. He'd found the tin of cookies, the cellophane sleeve still holding a few crumbs. He smelled Phalene's perfume just faintly as he combed through the storage container. Sandemon isn't the problem. I'm more concerned with Phalene's employers. Who are they, and what do they want? I'll tell you what they want. His head. The three turned to face the entrance, mouths agape. The three turned to face the entrance, mouths agape. Standing at the top of the steps, Captain Sandemon and Ramsdell stood, clutching Portillion between them. Portillion looked terrified, a thin trickle of urine spilling from one pant leg. The look on Joss's face was one of sheer fury. I wonder if that line is supposed to be Joss saying it. I don't know. I'll stick with Sandemon. I think I got time for another here, depending on length. So, yeah, Grundle tried to keep the truth. He seems to have succeeded, or Joran and Sophris are just being nice. I don't know. Tell me everything. Leave nothing out. I will know if you're lying. The captain's normally genial expression had been replaced by one of pure power and command. It was damn surprising. Joran shot a look in Sophris's direction. I don't know, Joran. He may possess an ability I cannot detect. Sandemon paced around the head of the conference table like a father scolding his errant children. Ramsdale sat just to the right of the captain's chair, appearing as cantankerous as ever. Grundle spoke first. He talked about the bombing, about about the suspected involvement of the Yafriti ascendancy, meeting the captain and the crew. He spoke about Faline and the boarding of the Sturmvolk. At that point, Joran stepped in. He talked about Portilion's statue and how someone wanted him dead. Sandemon seemed to enjoy the tale of the necrotic horror, particularly how Grundle had done what the previous captain could not, namely, defeat the monster. Joss seemed annoyed by the story, probably because he had nearly died in the fight and his crewmates hadn't been much help. Grundle picked up the story from there, speaking to Portilion's heroism in leaving what he thought had been the statue behind and doing what he could to save the Thermopylaean citizens along the canal. From there, he talked about Phaline's betrayal of Captain Thraxus and his subsequent untimely death. Sophros talked about when he'd learned of Phaline's treachery. He said he hadn't been aware of the full extent, but that he'd gleaned she was a murderer. He spoke of Grundle's attempts to get more information out of her, and of learning she'd been a puppet of an organization she called the Snakes. The room fell silent. Sophros looked around. He'd assumed everyone knew about them. Joss was staying quiet, not due to ignorance, but because he was afraid. The Serpentine Shroud, if that's who she'd been thinking of, were rumored to be immensely powerful. Sandemon stared intensely.
Did she say this directly?
Sophros gulped and said yes. She hadn't said it to him, of course, but he'd heard it all the same. The Snakes. The men seemed legitimately terrified, except for Grundle, who seemed completely confused. Grundle looked to Joran. The Snakes are real? Sandemon crossed himself and strode to the window. He turned around, crossing his arms.
This is unfortunate. I am compelled to alert my employer with this information, and yet the group that you've mentioned is believed to wield incredible power. Their tentacles run deep, as they say. I am blessed to say I've managed to stay clear of their influence, but believe me, there have been offers.
Joran was pissed. He looked at Sophros. You knew this and didn't tell me? What the hell, Sophros? Sophros was unperturbed.
The organization has a name. It's of little consequence. What matters is she is gone, and our hands are clean.
Sandemon took a seat. Sandemon took his seat.
Not exactly. If anyone learns that I have had this man on my ship the entire length of our voyage and not reported it to Avandi Marshal, my career will be forfeit. All of us will be marked. Of course, had you brought Faline to me as a prisoner, we might have had more options. But one of you apparently felt the need to alert her of the danger, thus providing her an excuse to make her exit.
He glared at Grundle.
I respect your compassion, my friend. You are truly a man of honor, but you have placed all of us in an extremely dangerous position. A lesser man would put all of you in chains and release Portilion to those who wish him dead.
He struck the pose of a great orator.
Blessedly, I am not a lesser man.
Hell yeah. Captain Sandemon comes through. I love this old bastard. I had somebody proofread the book early on and just give some thoughts, and she was like, there's so many captains. There's so many captains in this book. It's great. I might change that at some point. I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading, come back to the next one. You guys are great. Send me an email, everythingisawesomepodcast@gmail.com, or shoot me a tweet at EIA Podcasts. Alrighty, thank you very much. Peace.